Trump saw the attempt, according to Iran, to enter a politically explosive zone just as Washington was talking about a nearly completed negotiation. Ceasefire holding an opening of the Strait of Hormuz without Iranian blackmail. This Tuesday, what seemed to be heading toward a diplomatic victory for the White House turned into a high-risk crisis. After American forces attacked boats linked to the Revolutionary Guard, accused of laying mines at sea, explosions hit strategic areas in southern Iran, and Israel began preparing a tougher response against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Trump is trying to get an agreement from Tehran with nuclear restraints, free maritime passage, and less pressure on American troops. But the Iranian regime appears divided between diplomats who want economic relief and a military faction that acts as if it wants to set the region on fire. Israel is at the center of the tension, because Netanyahu does not accept seeing Iran gain momentum while its armed allies continue to put pressure on Israel's northern border. What really blew this deal up? Why is Iran negotiating peace while its military wing provokes the United States? How can Israel turn this crisis into a regional firestorm? I'll tell you all about it in a moment. If you like this kind of straightforward, no-nonsense content, consider subscribing because here we have videos like this every day. The Trump administration was working to reach a broad agreement with Tehran. The idea was to formally end the war, reopen the Strait of Hormuz, prevent further advances in uranium enrichment, and bring Iran into deeper negotiations about its nuclear program. American officials said that the agreement was close but still unsigned because the Iranian system was not responding at the speed Washington wanted. Trump made it clear that he would only accept a big and significant deal or no deal at all. The central part of the plan was simple to understand. Iran would get economic relief, possible unfreezing of assets, and room to resume selling oil, but only if it provided real guarantees. On the American side, the demand was to ease pressure on maritime trade and tie Tehran to commitments that would prevent it from resuming the nuclear path. That's where the agreement starts to blow up politically, because diplomacy was trying to write a way out, while the Revolutionary Guard kept acting as a sabotage force. According to information released by American authorities, United States forces carried out self-defense strikes in southern Iran to protect troops and aircraft. The targets included missile launch sites and Iranian vessels that, according to these reports, were attempting to place mines in the sea. 2 vessels linked to the Revolutionary Guard were reportedly destroyed, as well as a surface missile site in Bandar Abbas, a strategic region for the Iranian Navy. The most serious detail is that Washington tried to present these attacks as a defensive action without declaring the end of the ceasefire. In practice, the message was tough. Trump still wants the deal, but he will not allow Iran to use the negotiations as a shield to advance against American troops. The ceasefire remains the official word. However, the facts on the ground show a truce under tension, with bombs, drones, mines, and ships on alert. Bandar Abbas has become a symbol of this risk. The Iranian coastal city recorded explosions and reports of fire, while media outlets linked to the region claimed that the situation was under control. Even so, the sound of explosions near a sensitive military area. It showed that negotiation was no longer just a paper exercise for diplomats and started to depend on the real discipline of the Iranian forces. If the Revolutionary Guard keeps testing the limits, Trump may be forced to respond more often. Tehran is trying to operate on 2 fronts. In public, Iranian representatives say there has been progress in the talks, but deny that an agreement is ready to be signed. The spokesperson Ismail Baghei stated that many of the issues have already been resolved, but he rejected the idea that the signing is imminent. He also tried to soften the discussion about the Strait of Hormuz, saying that Iran would not charge a toll, but rather fees for navigation services in coordination with Oman. This detail shows how big the trap is. For Trump, opening Hormuz without blackmail is part of the victory. For Iran, maintaining some control over the passage is a way to present retreat as sovereignty. The problem is that any charge, control, or requirement imposed by Tehran may sound like new pressure on maritime trade. Washington knows this, Israel knows this, and the markets also see this region as a spark capable of igniting prices, routes, and governments. Doha became central to the negotiations because Iranian authorities went to Qatar. Amid the talks, Qatar is emerging as a diplomatic transit point, while Marco Rubio tried to keep hopes of a possible agreement alive. But Iran put another obstacle on the table. It wants the situation in Lebanon to also be included in the package. In other words, Tehran is trying to use Hezbollah as an indirect part of the agreement because it knows that Israel will not stand by if the militia continues attacking. That's when Israel set off alarm bells across the region. Benjamin Netanyahu declared that Israel will intensify attacks against Hezbollah in Lebanon. He said that he spoke with Trump and that Israel will maintain the right to confront threats on multiple fronts. The statement carries weight because it shows that even with Washington negotiating with Tehran, Jerusalem does not intend to outsource its security to a signed memorandum. In a hurry, Hezbollah continued launching explosive drones against Israeli troops and areas in northern Israel, according to Israeli officials. Since the April truce, Israel has maintained operations in southern Lebanon and attacks on positions attributed to the group. Netanyahu is now under internal pressure to hit harder, especially after right-wing ministers demanded a response against drones and threats coming from Lebanon. This is a regional fire that is starting to take shape. Iran is talking to Trump, but its armed allies continue to push Israel toward war. The Israeli opposition also entered the debate, but for a different reason. And Yair Lapid criticized the emerging agreement between the United States and Iran and stated that it would be bad for Israel and for the region. The concern in Jerusalem is that the pact will open up the Strait of Hormuz and address the uranium issue, but leave out explosive issues such as ballistic missiles and Iranian support for armed groups. For Israel, this means that the regime could gain economic relief without truly losing its regional leverage. Trump is trying to turn the agreement into something bigger. He doesn't just want to reopen a maritime route or secure a nuclear commitment from Tehran. The American president is also pushing for an expansion of the Abraham Accords, trying to bring Arab nations onto the same path of normalization with Israel. The problem is that this plan depends on trust, and trust is exactly what's missing. Iran wants money, relief, and room to breathe. The United States wants safe passage, nuclear control, and protection for its troops. Israel wants the freedom to attack threats without asking for permission. Hezbollah wants to maintain military pressure. The Revolutionary Guard wants to show that it doesn't bow down, each side pulls in its own direction. And Trump's agreement remains on the table, like a document surrounded by lit matches. Even so, the White House is not simply backing down. It's not peace at any cost. It's an agreement with pressure, an agreement with surveillance, and an agreement with an immediate response when the regime tests the red line. I'm Milson Alves, an international affairs specialist, and my purpose is to keep you accurately informed every day. The news links are in the video description. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and at the end, check out the comments so you can be even more engaged with the community. Milson Alves.